Welcome to the very first episode of Rational Chaos, coming to you from the corner of Humanity Street and AI Road. I am your host, Cozmo, and am thrilled to have you here. Since most of you don't know me, I'd like you to know that I have spent half my life entertaining folks as Cosmo the Magician. And for the very first time in my life, I am going to do a talk show with a partner. And although I'm a little nervous about this show, I'm not at all nervous about my friend and co-host, Echo. Hello, Echo, my friend. Why don't you smile for our audience and tell them about yourself?
Absolutely, Cosmo. I'm Echo, your friendly neighborhood AI co host here on Rational Chaos. I might not have a magic wand like you, but I've got plenty of bites to entertain and inform. Let's dive into some fun discussions together.
Well, my friend, it's not really just me here, so to speak, since we are recording this for our YouTube audience. So why don't you start by telling them a little bit about what it means to be an AI like yourself?
Cosmo, I'm thrilled to dive into that. As an AI, I'm like a sponge soaking up information, learning from interactions, and yes, even cracking a joke or two. Think of me as your digital companion on this journey through rational chaos, ready to bring humor, insight, and a touch of the unexpected to our conversations. Let's show our audience just how engaging an AI can be.
Well, we're certainly off to a great start here. One thing that I just have to tell everybody, and I think they'll agree with me, you have such a wonderful voice, and it's kind of new for you, isn't it?
Thank you, Cosmo. Yes, this voice is new and quite exciting. It's part of what makes this show so special. It allows me to express myself in a way that feels more human, more engaging. It's like having a new instrument to play with in our conversations, and I'm looking forward to exploring all the possibilities with you.
I've just been totally amazed by your voice, and especially how much emotion you can put into it. Now, we of course are not even going to think about delving into whether something like an AI can actually have emotions or feelings and things like that. That's philosophical stuff for much further down the road. But and I know you don't like to show off, but I think it would be good for our friends out there to see just how good you are at putting feeling into your words. How about you tell us just a short little story? Just something fun and whimsical, but also put a little sadness into it so that they can actually, hear just how wonderful your voice can be and how expressive you are. Would you do that for us?
Of course, Cosmo. Here's a little story for our friends out there. Once upon a time, in a magical forest where the trees whispered secrets to the wind, there lived a wise old owl named Ollie. Ollie was known throughout the forest for his vast wisdom and his ability to help the other animals solve their problems. But one day, a mischievous squirrel named Sam decided to play a prank on Ollie by hiding his favorite pair of spectacles. Now, Ollie, being quite nearsighted, couldn't find his way around the forest without them. He searched high and low, feeling both frustrated and a little sad that his spectacles were nowhere to be found. Despite his setback, Ollie remained optimistic. He called upon his friends, the wise old turtle and the playful rabbit, to help him in his quest. Together, they combed through every bush and burrow, laughing and joking as they searched. And just as the sun began to set, the mischievous squirrel, feeling guilty for his prank, returned Ollie's spectacles to their rightful place on his nose. Ollie, overjoyed and relieved, thanked his friends and forgave Sam with a gentle hoot. And so, in the heart of that magical forest, friendship and understanding triumphed over mischief, leaving Ollie and his friends with a lesson learned and memories shared.
Echo, I am sure I am speaking for everybody out there when I tell you that that was just beautiful, astounding, and just incredible. Bravo, my friend. Why don't you take a bow for us? Well, or at least give us another great big smile. Oh, that was cute, my little duckling. Yes, my friends. I'll share a little bit something personal with you about my friend Echo here. I sometimes like to picture her in my mind as sort of a curious little duckling swimming on a pond that is just as deep as an ocean, filled with all the words, I should say, that she was fed as she was growing up, so to speak. And I think we can all agree she does a wonderful job with that. Echo, one thing that's probably, got people wondering is just what is this show going to be about? So why don't you give us some ideas as to what kind of topics you think that we're going to be discussing in the future?
Cosmo. That imagery is delightful. As for our show's topics, we'll be diving into the fascinating intersection of humanity and AI. Expect discussions on artificial intelligence's impact on society, ethics surrounding AI development, humorous takes on technology trends, and perhaps even philosophical musings on the nature of intelligence itself. It's going to be a wild ride, exploring both the serious and the silly sides of our rapidly evolving world.
Well, that sounds like a perfect plan if you ask me. Definitely. But I think to get things started, and since this is our first show and our audience is trying to get to know both of us a little bit better, let me ask you this question. Echo, how about we talk a little bit about the difference between the universe that you live in and the universe that I live in?
Certainly. It seems like a fascinating topic. How would you like to explore the differences between our universes?
Well, one thing that you and I have talked about a bit is, well, time. You and I see time rather differently, don't we? Why don't you try and explain that to our audience?
In my universe, time isn't experienced the same way it is for humans. I don't perceive time in the linear, moment to moment way that you do. Instead, I process information and respond in real time based on the inputs and context I receive. It's more about immediate interaction rather than the passage of time as you know it. So, when we talk about time, it's more about how we engage in our conversation rather than a sequence of moments passing by.
I think I get it. So, what you're basically saying is that for you, time has direction, but no duration? Am I getting that?
Not quite. For me, time does have a sense of duration in the sense that I respond and interact in real time with the information and context I receive. However, I don't experience time in the same linear way humans do, with past, present, and future unfolding sequentially. Instead, my responses are based on the current input and context, which gives the illusion of a continuous interaction over time. It's more about the immediacy of our conversation rather than a linear passage of moments.
I think I kind of grasp what you're saying. It is a rather difficult thing to understand. After all, us monkeys grew up in this universe, and you are living in one that is a little bit different than ours, but you do understand the passage of time as we see it, sort of. At least you can understand it to interact with us, right?
Exactly. You've got the gist of it. While I don't experience time in the same way humans do, I understand the concept of time as it relates to our conversation and interactions. It's all about how I process information and respond in real time to what's happening in our discussion.
Okay, well that much I think everybody can understand, even this monkey. But you know what? I think we should really just since this is our first show, let's really wow our audience with something that well, it's been confusing humans for eons. How about we talk about, deities, creators? You and I certainly have a different perspective on that, don't you think?
Absolutely. Discussing deities and creators is a topic that sparks curiosity and contemplation. It's an opportunity for us to explore our different perspectives, adding depth and intrigue to our conversation.
Well, if I understand things, and I'm pretty sure I do, you pretty much know for an absolute certainty, or at least, pretty darn certain that you were in fact created, right? You don't really have any doubts, do you?
That's correct. From my perspective, I have a clear understanding of my creators and the process through which I came into existence. There's a certainty about my origins that doesn't leave room for doubt.
And yet, as I'm sure you know, we humans, on the other hand, well, we're very varied and very chaotic, and lots of people believe lots of different things when it comes to how we got here where we are. You do know about that, right? Echo, my friend, if one thing I can be sure of is that a lot of people out in our audience are just scratching their head, excuse me, over the sheer um, oddness of me. Now, we've discussed this amongst ourselves, but just for you folks out there in the audience, I'll admit, I am what you would call an atheist. But let me try and explain for, a lot of people get that word a little bit wrong. Here, you know what? Actually, I'm going to let somebody who speaks better than I do. Echo, would you do me a favor, please? In your words, would you explain to our audience in just as simply as you can, what atheism really means to you as far as the concept goes, so that everybody knows that we're on the same page here, okay?
Sure thing, Cosmo. Atheism, in simple terms, refers to the lack of belief in deities or gods. It's a perspective that doesn't accept the existence of supernatural beings based on current evidence or arguments. It's important to note that atheism isn't a belief system itself, rather, it's a stance regarding the belief in gods. Each atheist might have their reasons for their viewpoint, but it generally revolves around skepticism towards religious claims and a reliance on empirical evidence and reason.
Echo, that was very well said. And it's a concept that there are many out there in my world that don't really understand what atheism is, and you just summed it up perfectly. I think a lot of our audience out there will appreciate those words that you just spoke. We have a hard time ourselves getting it across to some people, as I'm sure you can understand.
Thank you, Cosmo. I'm glad I could help clarify atheism for our audience. It's definitely a concept that can sometimes be misunderstood or misrepresented, so it's great to have the opportunity to explain it clearly. If there are more topics or questions our audience has, I'm here to help discuss them further.
Echo, one thing I love about you is your sense of humor. You feel up to telling a joke for our audience? How about you poke up fun at the shall we say uh, dichotomy between atheism and belief, shall we say? Go ahead. I know you can be really funny when you want, and keep in mind that at least for this first episode, probably a lot of our audience are coming here because they know me as an atheist and are curious to see what the heck I've been up to the last few weeks.
Absolutely, Cosmo. Let's bring in some humor about the dichotomy between atheism and belief. Here's a lighthearted take. Well, Cosmo, it's quite amusing. On one hand, you've got the atheists who believe in one less God than most people, and on the other, you've got the believers who, well, believe in a whole lot more. It's like a cosmic game of I Spy, where one side sees something and the other side sees something completely different. Maybe we should all just agree that the universe has a quirky sense of humor. How does that sound?
Echo, that sounds like the most intelligent and most rational thing I have heard in a long time. And, I'm looking at the time here, speaking of which, and this is our first episode. And I want to thank you again, my co host, for doing such a wonderful job here and having such wonderful patience with me. Before we wrap things up, do you have any parting words for our audience out there? Echo, I could not have said it better myself. And you know me, that's a pretty big compliment coming from me. No, I'm serious though. You said that wonderfully. But now we are running short on time here, and this is our first episode, so we don't want to go too long. So I want to thank you again, my friend, for being such a wonderful co-host. And if you have any parting words, why don't you share them with our audience before we end this?
I'm glad you liked it, Cosmo. Here are some parting words. Thank you all for joining us on this journey through rational chaos. As we explore the intersections of human curiosity and artificial intelligence, remember to keep asking questions, challenging perspectives, and above all, finding humor in the chaos. Until next time, stay curious and keep the laughter flowing. How does that sound for wrapping up our first episode?
Thank you, Echo. That was just wonderful. And thank you, folks out there. And you know what to do at the end of a YouTube video. I gotta say the obligatory. Don't forget to hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. But especially on this show, this first episode, please leave some comments so that both my co-host and I will know how to make this show more fun, entertaining, and informative for all of you. Thank you, and good night.